a better team tonight?
Well, I thought our guys were pretty resilient, obviously getting down 10 two different times in the game and being able to fight back and put ourselves in a good position. I thought we beat ourselves at times trying to make the right play. I thought we had a travel in front of the bench, then we had a couple passing turnovers where there's nothing wrong with trying to attempt a pass. You just have to complete it and be able to make a simple play in that stretch. But I don't know what the actual time was, but we just had a 2-3 minute stretch where we were getting stops and we were stopping Villanova, and then we were getting opportunities at the other end and we didn't capitalize. And that really, really hurt us, even though we were in the game at the end, but we still had to, we never got to where we tied it or took the lead, especially at the end because we were playing the foul game.
Matt, forever here with this program, you guys have talked about the first 5 minutes of the second half. They hit 7 for 7 to start the second half and went up 11. You talked about,
Right.
twice you had to fight back. In retrospect, how important was the first 5 minutes of the second half?
Well, it was the difference because you put in a lot of time. We just needed to play, better in that one stretch I mentioned. And then I think our crowd really would have helped us at that point. But, we dug out of that hole to tie the game, and obviously we made a 60-foot shot at the end of the half to tie the game. At half. But then they took the lead back out. So then we have to fight to get back in that position instead of playing even up against them and trying to take the lead. But it was a pivotal part of the game.
Matt, what are the long-term benefits of playing a game like this in November? And why don't more teams play more games like this in November?
Well, a lot of people play, neutral site games. That's what you end up getting. It's hard to schedule games of this nature. You'd like to do it, but when you go back and forth and you're trying to build, your resume and try to schedule, everybody's going to play in an exempt event. Everybody's going to play in, the ACC Big Ten Challenge, things of that nature, the Crossroads Classic. But not everybody wants to go and play on the road, even if you do a home and home. And so we've been able to do that with different teams, and it's not something you can't do, but it's just harder to do and it's harder to schedule that way.
Go ahead, Pete. Sorry. What are the long-term benefits to your team?
Well, the long-term benefits of getting into games like this, and especially, the way I didn't think our effort was bad. I thought our execution at times could have been better. I thought we could have made some more free throws. I thought we had some good looks at the basket that didn't go down. So, nobody's trying to turn it over. Nobody's trying to miss shots. So I thought our guys were doing a good job of making the right play. So obviously the long-term benefits is getting back in to these type of games, especially in conference play, and being able to win them. Against I think the caliber team of a Villanova, which is obviously a top 5 team in the country.
Matt, when you get this kind of contribution from Smotherman, who hadn't played, I guess, basically in 2 years,
Right.
Just talk about that a little bit.
Well, I thought he did some good things for us tonight. He's very active. He's very fast with the basketball, but they have some interchangeable athletes that are tough matchups. I think we have some size. That's a tough matchup. So he really, gave us some help in that area of guarding some of their guys that were coming in the game, whether that's Jenkins or Pascal. Josh Hart. We had trouble with Josh Hart all night, but no, he just gives us another athlete to be able to defend those guys and play, and understands the game and knows what's going on, and just has to keep working and keep getting better.
Matt, you had a couple guys in foul trouble.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like that changed the complexion of the game?
Well, I think it would have been a little bit different if Isaac Haas would have played in the first half. Obviously he gets 22 points in 20 minutes. I'd like to see him playing 30 minutes in this game, and I think we're in a different position at half. I don't think they had an answer for him. But with that being said, I thought we had some breakdowns in ball screen defense. Pascal's 2 threes are huge. We know there's a flip when they put 5 guys that can shoot threes out there. That's hard for us to handle, but it's hard for them on the other end. We just have to be able to flip it on them, and so it's more advantageous for us to score more than them with those kind of lineups.
Vince had 3 travels tonight on that move that has kind of plagued him throughout his career here.
Yeah.
In the past, you've said that you don't really think that's necessarily a travel, but
Right.
it gets called that way. Is that something that Vince is going to have to change or adapt to the way they're calling it?
I'll
or?
watch him. I'll watch these and see if they're actual travels. I thought one of them, was a travel, but I've been fooled before. The way he kind of takes a slow, long step. We've talked to our officials coordinator, then we clip it up and send it to him, so then he sends it to officials who are coming to ref our games. So we've gotten it corrected, like that, but I don't know if those are travels or not. So I'll just watch it, and then if it's him, then you work on it with him. If it's not, then but I understand what you're saying. Even if it's sometimes, I always say if it looks like one, it is one. Whether it is or it isn't, they normally call it that way. So you got to be able to play without it looking like a travel, even when it's not.
Do you chalk Hart's productivity and what that meant to the foul trouble to him being really good, or just some vulnerabilities with your team defensively at this point?
All of it. All of those factor in. I think he worked our big guys got past him, and he worked them downhill. I thought we blew our coverage sometimes with him, and then he's just a good player, period. So I like what they've done. Jalen Brunson just doesn't jump in there and just right away is the guy there. You know what I mean? I like the growth. He's going to be a great player in all conference. Jenkins didn't do that. Hart didn't do that, but now they are. You see their program, guys getting better. Guys understand about winning. Guys have toughness. And that's what I tried to explain to our guys. And our guys, they bought that. Was that a lot of time when you talk about it, like defending national champ, you talk about talent, you talk about athleticism, and these guys are talent and athletic, but their number one thing is they play hard, and they play together. And he's done an unbelievable job of getting good guys that are talented, but they've also grown in his program. They just haven't, even though he's had a couple guys be able to make it. So we played him when Archie Dianaco and Ochefu were freshmen, and we played them. And for where they got in 3 years, that's what a good program's about. Good program's about guys improving, guys getting better. And now I think you see it with Booth, the guy that averaged 6-7 points last year, and he gets 20 in a championship game. It just kind of shows you, the guys that they have and the development in their program.
Coach, I know not the end result you wanted, but what was the message to your team after the game?
Just some of the things I talked about in terms of, not beating ourselves, taking care of the ball in that one stretch. You can't get mad at guys, for missing free throws, for missing open threes. No one's trying to, to miss shots, but you got to be able to play. We had to do a better job on Josh Hart, in my opinion. We had a couple breakdowns in the second half defensively that I thought really hurt us to start the second half. And so you try to clean those things up and work on those things. But more than anything, our guys were resilient. They fought back on 2 different occasions. But we have to make free throws, and we got to take care of the basketball. We just had to have more opportunities. I thought when Swanigan got the ball and Haas got the basketball, they were in a tough spot, and they needed to be in the game more, especially Haas, and they needed to get the ball more. And the more possessions you have, you just can't have 15 turnovers and feel good about it.
Coach, Big E's on the Naismith Award watch list. They're really impressive box score tonight against about as impressive an opponent. He's put up some big stats so far this year.
Right.
How far do you think from what you've seen him, how far is he coming? How far does he have yet to go?
Well, I think the number one thing he's improved on is his effort. He's given more of himself, especially when shots go up. He's really, he had a handful of the night that I thought he was getting and he didn't get, but his effort's there. It wasn't that his effort wasn't there. Last year, you have to understand where he came from a physical standpoint. And so he just keeps getting better physically. He keeps leaning out, to the best of his ability. And then now his stamina is so high to where he can run the court. He can go rebound every time. He can be demanding of himself. And he's simply going to be more productive. But, he has 4 assists again tonight. He's had a lot of assists for us. Obviously, he's had a lot of rebounds. But he's just he's a good overall player. He's good playing off of Isaac. He's good playing off of Vince Edwards and just kind of picking his spots. And he's worked hard on his perimeter shooting. So just when he lets things come to him, I think he would like to have that back tonight. I think he thought they were going to come and foul. And, if he just would have shot that in rhythm, I think he'd had a good look. I think PJ he had a good look. He got shocked. They didn't jump him. And, but that's part of it. And it's a tough spot of the game right there, especially when you don't have timeouts. But, no, he's been great. And he's that way in practice. He's learned to lace him up every day and get after it and try to improve. He puts a lot of time in individually to his game, not just during our practice.
You talked a little bit prior to the season about toughness, and you've talked about like it's not a known commodity quite yet. Did you see anything tonight you needed to see from them? There were a couple of situations where it looked like Villanova was separating itself a little bit.
Right.
they kept coming back.
Right.
Was that important to see?
Well, like I said, you know, I thought we were resilient. I thought our guys played hard. I didn't think we played smart all the time. I think that's what we got to do. We got to continue to work in both areas and you know, clean up some details, especially defensively, and get better in that area. But I like the guys in our locker room, and you know, I know they went out there tonight and they competed. And like I said, you know, we have to play smarter than we did tonight. We can't live. You know, with 15 turnovers. Obviously the 26 assists are great, out rebounding them's great. We needed a couple more opportunities to beat these guys tonight.
That actually was what I was gonna ask you about, was you had talked about maybe not being so worried from what you've seen in the preseason about the press and things like that. It was more just the half-court sloppiness. And there was a stretch tonight where you guys missed the front end of a one-on-one and you had 3 straight turnovers, I think.
Yeah.
And that those stretches, it seemed like there was still some of that poise.
Yeah, and we had a couple of them. In the first half, we had the one stretch where we had back-to-back turnovers, and then it just, you know, those are things you just have to clean up and get better. And I think our guys they understand those things, and you know, we'll watch film and make those improvements.
With Isaac's foul trouble in the first half, I mean, all of them were fouls because they were called fouls, but what do you need to see him do better?
Well, you know, he's getting attacked, and they're coming at him. He needs to go straight up. He wasn't. I thought the ones they called on him were fouls. The one guy, it wasn't his fault. He was so late, and we had a blown coverage, and he comes back to him, and he fouled him. The other one, in the first half, both those fouls. The first 2 are fouls. I'm forgetting the third one, but he has a problem with going straight up and keeping his hands straight up. So they allow you to jump now, and so we work on him jumping and not coming down. But he's still, when the contact hits, you know, he wants to bring his arms down. You can't play on the ball there, just stay big. And, you know, he's just got to, you know, do that. But we also got to, we can't have a lot of opportunities where he's getting challenged. You know, I mean, it can happen, and he's got to do his job, but there's too many opportunities where they're breaking us down, and we got to do a better job of containing the dribble. That would help him also.
2 more over there. Is Basil a guy you're going to just plug in where you have foul trouble throughout the year?
You know, we'll see. You know, he's going to have to, you know, really find his way. If he could find his way, I thought tonight he gave us some energy. He rebounded the ball well. If he can defend those guys, he's going to find his way with this team. And I've said that all along. You know, the guys on our team that can do the best job defending, I like the skill level. You know, I think we have some guys that can shoot it, that didn't shoot it particularly well tonight, even though 8 for 22 is not terrible. We can still shoot a better percentage than that, in my opinion. But if he can do those type of things, take care of the basketball, play hard, bring his energy, and defend, you know, he'll find his way. Tonight he really fit just because they have those interchangeable 3-4 pieces that are tough to defend. Yeah.
And Matt, there's probably going to be other times where both of those guys are going to be in foul trouble. How comfortable are you playing small with both of those guys on the bench? And then what are the challenges of trying to manage their playing time if you're going to try and work them in?
Yeah, well, you know, when they get in foul trouble like that, I consider them one person for a while in the game. So a lot of times coaches don't understand that piece of it. So like when they get 2 fouls apiece, they still got 6. I know it's 3 and 3, but they still have 6. So you got to think it in your mind. If it was one person, would you be okay with them having 6 fouls? So I treat them as one person right as they both get into foul trouble until I get around that 10-minute mark. Then I get around that 10-minute mark. If they're both at 3, one person still has 4. So don't let it cripple you, you know, as a coach. But having them together when they have 5 guys that can shoot is tough. That's tough no matter what their foul situation is. But we are getting hurt more on Josh's ability to break us down than anything. Even though other people made plays, Pascal made a couple jumpers, still we're going to live with a little bit of some of that. But we didn't want to live with him getting to the rim a lot. And so those were some breakdowns from everybody, them included. So, you know, for us, going small without either one of them in the game, I prefer not to do that. I kind of enjoy playing our best players. So if you guys ever get a team, it's a good thing to do. Play your best guys. But I understand what you're saying. If we went with Basil and Vince, I think we did it a couple possessions when we had to press there at the end. And so, you know, we got to say how to do a good job in the post. Then we got to switch a lot on ball screen. So it's definitely doable, but it's something where, you know, you'd rather, you know, that's how I just kind of play with those guys once they get into it. Hammonds did a really good job as he progressed as a player. He stayed out of foul trouble when he was younger. You know, you can see like right away when Isaac gets one, I get him out because I want him to, you know, kind of push the refresh button and understand, hey, here's what you did wrong. You know, now make sure you don't do that again. Even though the first one, I think he really had to, the guy was coming to dunk on him. you know, you either had to get the heck out of the way or challenge him, and he challenged him. But the next one was something we'd work on. That was just a fundamental breakdown.
Matt, if you, obviously you're coaching this is your school, your team, but was this the kind of game, if you're sitting at home with a Bruno's Pizza, you have no vested interest in the two teams other than just the enjoyment, the mental toughness with which both teams played all the way through, is this the kind of basketball game you love to watch?
Well, sure. You know, they're a Big Ten type team. Not to be negative towards the Big East, or because the Big East is an unbelievable conference with unbelievable teams. Obviously, they won the national championship coming out of that league, but they fit. If they jumped into the Big Ten, they fit. You know, they can play physical, they can play skill, they can play fast. They have a real good mix to what they're doing, but their overall toughness is, one of the best in the country. And so that's something that you would really embrace as a coach when you compete against them, because you have to be tougher than a team like this. And I told him, I said, the teams that beat them out-rebound them. And then I stick my foot in my mouth, we out-rebound when we get beat. So, but if you go back and look at the teams that, had some success against them last year, very few people out-rebounded them, but the ones that did had success. All right, thank you.
Thanks.